SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants. What can you say about it in 2021? Probably that Nick's gotten a little carried away with the brand. More than ever, it feels like a mascot for the corp than a show, seeing how it's taken nearly 3 years for Season 12 to air on the network. 2019 wasn't that bad, but 2020 and 2021 have been real drip feeds, so I apologize that this countdown has taken a long time to make. How has Season 12 been quality-wise? There's only one way to find out. I'm Employee A Million, and here are my 5 favorite and least favorite episodes of SpongeBob Season 12. Number 5, SpongeBob's Bad Habit. Kicking off the worst list is an episode with a story that had the potential to be good, but squandered that potential every step of the way. SpongeBob develops a nail-biting problem, and it gets worse and worse until he has to see a psychiatrist. In this scene, they really want to sell the absurdity of the situation, but a crippling nail-biting problem is not very funny, and it's presented as being very funny. A lot of the jokes are the same thing. SpongeBob bites his and other people's nails. It gets samey, and the lack of a proper resolution to SpongeBob's bad habit makes it feel like this is all they wanted to do. I'd recommend watching the Rocko's Modern Life episode Tooth and Nail instead. That one at least had varied jokes and a conclusion. Number 4, Quarantined Crab. If you've heard whispers of this one, that's understandable. This episode finished production in early 2020 and was about people going stir-crazy under quarantine. In case you've been living with Patrick, that was really poor timing. Next held off releasing this one in America, so for the time being, you'll likely have to scour the internet for it. Not that you'd want to. It fails to be grossly funny or an engaging psychological thriller. It's just a mess of random ideas and characters. It's not offensive if you're worried about that, but it has a lot of gross out at the end, which is another downer ending. At least the gross out here is more colourful and creative than it was 10 years ago. But is that really the best praise I can muster for this episode? Yes, it is. Number 3, Jolly Lodgers. Old habits die hard, and unfortunately whole stories dedicated to SpongeBob and Patrick bothering Squidward are never going to completely vanish. There's quite a few of them in Season 12, Pineapple RV, Squids on a Bus, Pet Hard Squid, with Jolly Lodgers having the worst of it. Whether or not you like these kinds of stories, you have to admit they've gotten very predictable and aren't exactly showcases of the show's creativity these days. The big gimmick with this one is that it's set in a hotel. Whoopee. I guess if you've got a really young kid who hasn't watched a lot of SpongeBob, this could entertain them, but for the astute viewer who's seen this episode genre get churned out for 20 years, it's a waste of space in the episode guide. Number 2, Insecurity Guards. If you like the destruction of good things, you've come to the right episode. SpongeBob and Patrick steal security guard uniforms and work at a museum. And by work, I mean break stuff. The prop and background artists were able to do their job well, but I'm bothered that all their hard work is being dismantled because the story needs to be about breaking things. We're in a museum, we have to break things or else it's not a cartoon. Insecurity Guards is tiresome, just a random assortment of nonsense. There's also the subplot about Squidward sneaking some art in, which I couldn't care less about. Why would I want to watch 3 of the main characters acting more or less the same in a given situation? Number 1, The Nitwitting. Say hello to the worst episode since SpongeBob You're Fired. I'm serious. In which Patrick introduces SpongeBob to the Empty-Headed Society, a group of fools who go out and wreck Bikini Bottom. It's the exact same problem I have with Insecurity Guards, only now with much uglier designs and jokes, and an incomprehensible song number. People have read into this as having some sort of socio-political subtext. I mean, it ends with Sandy revealing she's a part of FEMA for some reason. All I can get from this text is that it was probably not a good idea to air this as the very first episode after the death of Steven Hillenburg. This is what the next schedule people call a tribute? One of the most mind-numbing and unpleasant episodes of all time? Give me a break. I don't hate Season 12 as a whole, and my feelings about the state of the show are more complicated, but it needs to be said that maybe some of this handling is very awkward. Now, they're still making some very good episodes, and here's the cream of the crop. Number 5, Stormy Weather. How do you make the pet plot more interesting at this point? Make it a pet cloud. Hey, a cloud's fun to animate. Drizzle is really dang cute, despite being an amorphous cloud, and that's because his chemistry with SpongeBob is developed well enough for an episode that will stop for a random infomercial joke. They aren't afraid to do something weird here, and go all in with that weirdness when need be, which can best be seen in the story's antagonist, Gail Doppler, the unhinged weather reporter who hasn't gotten the forecast wrong in 35 years. Season 12 had a plethora of one-off oddballs, but Gail sticks out. I've come to expect weird, but not weird and cute. This was a nice surprise. Number 4, A Cabin in the Kelp. Following on from Season 11's Girls' Night Out, the Gal Pals are ready to initiate a new member, Pearl, by taking her on a camping trip into the kelp forest and telling her a ghost story. Like you do. I love the chemistry of these four. It's kind of sad they waited so many years to kick this story arc off, but I'm really happy with where they've gone with it so far. SpongeBob manages to sneak his way into their activities once again. I mean, it's his show, he has to be in every episode, but A Cabin in the Kelp shows off one of the perks to SpongeBob being such a long runner. They're still able to put old characters in new situations by introducing new chemistries. This is a pretty funny episode, but it's mostly charming for taking a new chemistry and expanding upon it. Number 3, Gary and Spot. Sandy spins you a yarn about what Gary does every night while SpongeBob's asleep. He hangs out with Plankton's pet amoeba, Spot. They could just leave it there, do a couple cute pet things, and that alone would make for a nice limelight. But I love the sense of adventure in this episode, that they're going all over Bikini Bottom, getting into many kinds of mischief, bumping into all sorts of creatures and friends, and they even managed to fix up the Pound Guard. It's a romp, to put it mildly, and a very likeable one. I wonder why the best Gary episodes are usually the ones where he spends an extended amount of time away from SpongeBob. It's a mystery. Oh, speaking of which, mystery's here, as are Larry, the Sea Bears, and Pat the Horse. This is a treat of an episode. You'll always have something to smile at. Number 2, Pandemonium. Season 12 kind of threw the runtime formula in the bin. After a couple experiments in the past 2 seasons, they've been more willing to make extended episodes, as long as they have enough jokes to fill 14 to 16 minutes. Or an epic story about Plankton bringing the Chum Bucket Glove to life and it wreaking havoc through Bikini Bottom. Take it from an amateur, hands are hard to animate, so the SpongeBob crew just spent this whole episode flexing how good they were at them, from a cold open at an arm wrestling tournament, to all the gags they can do with 4 to 5 fingers. You better believe they go back to Glove World and bring back Hans. Love how SpongeBob summons him. Meta humor is sparse in this show, but it's really fun when it appears. When it comes to keeping your interest in SpongeBob, this episode should come in handy. Number 1, The Ghost of Plankton. This may be a predictable choice, but I just can't pass up another Flying Dutchman appearance, especially one as interesting and unique as this. Plankton turns himself into a ghost to get the Krabby Patty secret formula, but needs Dutchie to teach him the ropes. Only Dutchie has a sinister trick up his sleeve. My favorite thing about this episode is how dark it is. The plot is macabre enough, but they'll have these exaggerated haunting sequences, a fish laughing at Plankton's funeral, and a moral for Plankton that he's better off alive, even if he lives in constant misery. But it's all about the green, evil characters, so it's warranted. I wouldn't want this to be fluffy. This is my favorite episode of Season 12 because of its heavy atmosphere, wicked sense of humor, and exemplifying my favorite thing about its run of episodes, when they go for new concepts and dynamics. Only the 5th best is something that's been done before. I'm really proud of what United Plankton's able to do when they put their heads together to make a refreshing SpongeBob experience once in a while. I wouldn't say 12 is as good as 11 though. It's held back by those stinkers that are slowly losing sight of what worked about the original formulas. I'm holding my tongue on the spin-offs, they're a different can of worms, but if SpongeBob's to stick around, it has to remain the show we like, but give us something new. Season 12 was able to do that about half the time, but what I want out of Season 13, when I get to it, is less of this, and more of this. See you in 2027 when Season 13 finishes releasing. Goodbye for now.